September 1945, Hereford, Texas. The wind smelled like hay and iron. Corporal Takeo Matsuda, once of the Imperial Japanese Army, stood barefoot in red dirt, staring at a horse. The rancher, an old man in overalls and a sun-bleached hat, tipped his head. "You ever ride one of these, son?" Takeo didn't speak. In the Philippines, he'd bayoneted American Marines. In Luzon, he'd watched friends blow themselves up with grenades, shouting "Tenno Heika Banzai." Now, here in the quiet belly of America, a cowboy was offering him the reins. The horse huffed and nodded, like it understood something Takeo did not. He thought he knew who the enemy was. He had no idea what was coming. In December 1941, Takeo Matsuda stood in the courtyard of a military academy in Nagano. Snow lined the stone paths. He wore his new officer's sword like a promise. They told him Japan was destined to rule Asia, that America was soft, weak, poisoned by pleasure and greed. "They drink Coca-Cola while you drink duty," the instructor said, cracking his bamboo stick on the floor. Takeo believed every word. By 1943, he was in the Philippines, stationed with the 14th Area Army under General Yamashita. Their mission was clear: hold the islands at all costs. They were outnumbered, but that didn't matter. They had spirit. They had the emperor. And spirit, they believed, was enough to crush steel. They dug in, tunnels, jungle traps, camouflaged emplacements. American leaflets fell from the sky, offering surrender. Takeo burned them, laughing. "The Americans will run when we scream." But then the sky rained fire. From Leyte to Luzon, American bombers turned the green to ash. Supply lines vanished. Rice grew moldy. Ammunition rusted in crates. They fought with sharpened sticks. They boiled roots. Some men ate bark. Others ate worse. Still, surrender was never spoken. To be captured was shame, worse than death. And yet, in February 1945, with his unit down to 20 men and no bullets left, Takeo collapsed from dysentery and heat. A young American private dragged him from the jungle. When he awoke in a field hospital, a nurse handed him water. It was cold, too cold. He flinched, expecting poison. She smiled. That was the first time Takeo felt it. Confusion, a glitch in the story. Weeks later, aboard the USS Goshen, he stood among hundreds of Japanese POWs. No ropes, no cages, just rows of men, hands folded, eyes sunken. The sea glittered blue and indifferent. A Marine handed him a carton of eggs and said, "Texas'll feed you better than Tokyo." Takeo didn't understand. He expected barbed wire, dogs, men shouting in English. But the guards joked. They played cards. One offered him gum. Another showed him a picture of a woman in a swimsuit and said, "Miss America." Takeo looked away, not because of shame, but because he couldn't make sense of it. Was this the enemy? Hereford, Texas, wasn't even a dot on the map back home. But to the Americans, it was sacred ground, farmland, cattle, family. The POW camp sat near endless wheat fields and windmill towers that creaked in the sun. Barbed wire circled the perimeter, but no one really watched the gate. They didn't need to. Takeo noticed the fences were low, like a suggestion, not a threat. The American guards wore sun hats. Some didn't even carry rifles. They gave orders politely. They said please. He couldn't explain it, but something felt wrong. Not dangerous, just off. The other Japanese soldiers whispered at night, "This is a trick, a psychological game. They fatten us to make us weak." A sergeant from Osaka refused to eat the beef stew. "It's too rich. They want our stomachs soft." but the stew was hot, spiced, real. Takeo didn't speak much, but he watched. He watched the guards laugh at corny jokes. He watched a boy toss a baseball to a German POW like they were teammates. And he watched the flag. That American flag, red, white, and blue, fluttered gently above the mess hall. No soldier bowed to it. No one saluted, unless they felt like it. And yet, it was everywhere. The wind played with it like a toy. Free. He tried to imagine the rising sun flag doing the same. But in Japan, flags didn't flutter. They stood still, demanded silence. Then came the day the trucks arrived. A local farmer stepped down in boots thick with mud and tobacco breath. He pointed at the POWs with a gloved hand. "These boys pick cotton. Sun's not waiting." The guards nodded, no guns drawn, no force used. Takeo was confused again. Why were civilians giving orders? Why was a man who'd never worn a uniform speaking with more command than a general? But the guards obeyed. So Takeo climbed aboard the flatbed. His boots, new from American stock, thudded against the wood. The truck rumbled into the sun. Dust rose like smoke. Behind him, Texas unfolded, silent, vast, humming with something he could not name. That night, he wrote in a small journal, "They trust us with tools. Let us touch tractors. Why? No discipline, no shouting, and yet things move. Maybe freedom is a kind of order we do not understand." He didn't show the journal to anyone, but he couldn't stop writing. And deep inside, a question began to form. If America was as weak as they were told, why did it feel so strong? They woke before dawn. The farmer's truck coughed to life outside the barracks, kicking dust through the wire. Takeo wiped sleep from his eyes and laced his American boots. He still expected orders barked in guttural tones, but instead, the guards just nodded. One even said, "Don't forget your hat. Sun's a killer." It didn't make sense. In the Philippines, officers slapped men for standing out of line. Here in Texas, a civilian handed Takeo a thermos and said, "You're going to sweat today. Hydrate." The sun rose fast. The fields burned gold. Rows of cotton stretched to the horizon, endless white blooming from red soil. Takeo joined a team of POWs moving in rhythm. No chains, no dogs, just heat and silence. Nearby, a young boy, maybe 13, rode bareback past them, whistling. He waved. Takeo instinctively bowed. The boy giggled, pulled his hat off, and bowed back, exaggerated like an actor in a kabuki play. Laughter rippled among the workers. Someone muttered, "This is not war." During lunch, they sat beneath a rusted water tank. The farmer's wife arrived in a pickup, handing out sandwiches to Japanese soldiers. She wore denim and smelled like soap. Her hands were calloused, her smile honest. "Don't worry," she said. "No poison in these." Takeo blinked. His mind reached for sarcasm, for mockery. But she meant it. He took a bite. Ham, lettuce, a slice of something sweet. He chewed slowly. A sergeant nearby whispered, "This is how they break us. Comfort is the enemy." Takeo didn't respond. His mouth was full, and his heart was quiet. That night, a German POW, blond, tall, ex-tank crew, passed by their barracks. He nodded at Takeo. "First time, yeah," he said. "Texas is strange, but not bad." Takeo stared. The German lifted his shirt, revealing a deep scar across his side. "Tiger tank. Took a shell. Now I pick potatoes." He chuckled, then added in broken Japanese, "Better than being dead, nay?" Takeo gave a small bow. The German grinned. They let us live. That's the shock, isn't it? He walked away, humming an American tune. Takeo stood still, feeling the floor beneath his boots, foreign, firm, and oddly comforting. That night, the cicadas sang louder than usual, and for the first time, Takeo dreamed of cotton fields, not battlefields. The next week, the farmer gave them a new task: wheat harvest. Texas summer pressed down like a hammer. Cicadas screamed from the fence posts. The wheat cracked like dry bones underfoot. Takeo was assigned to the combine, a massive snorting machine that roared through the fields like an iron beast. The farmer showed him how to steer it, how to shift gears, how to check the oil. Then he handed over the wheel. "No one's shooting at you," he said. "Just don't hit my fence." Takeo gripped the handles with shaking hands. In Manchuria, he had once driven a broken truck for 5 miles with no brakes, and thought it was a miracle. Now he sat inside a machine taller than a horse, cutting through crops that could feed a city. No guards, no chains, just the hum of industry and trust. At the end of the row, the farmer handed him a glass bottle. "Coca-Cola," he said. "Don't drink it too fast." Takeo turned the bottle in his hand, cold, beaded with sweat, like a relic from another world. He remembered the propaganda leaflets, images of American soldiers lounging in deck chairs, sipping soft drinks, while Japanese soldiers bled in jungles. He opened the cap. It hissed. The first sip burned his throat. Sweet, effervescent, impossible. He looked at the farmer, who was already lighting a cigarette. Takeo took another sip, and didn't stop until it was empty. The farmer grinned. "Told ya." Later, back at camp, a fellow POW leaned in. "You know they drink that while fighting?" Takeo nodded. "And their women work in factories. They have radios. They listen to jazz." Takeo didn't know what jazz was, but he had heard something strange earlier. Music drifting from the farmhouse. Wild, unstructured, free. Not like the drums of home. Not like the strict cadence of the march. Another POW muttered, "We trained for hunger. They trained for speed." That night, the sky turned violet. The sun slipped behind the silos. Takeo sat near the wire fence, listening to the wheat rustle in the wind. He thought of the islands, the hunger, the suicides. He thought of the boy on the horse, and the German's scar, and the cold hiss of Coca-Cola. Then he pulled out his journal and wrote, "They laugh without fear. They give without demand. I do not understand this country." He paused, tapped the pencil, then added one more line, "But I want to." The storm came without warning. By dusk, the sky turned the color of bruises. Clouds rolled in like armored divisions, thunder cracking low across the Texas plains. Rain lashed the rooftops. Lightning split the sky. And in the chaos, a strange scene unfolded. A sergeant named Hiroshi, once feared in Luzon, known for his discipline and cruelty, slipped on the muddy path outside the medical hut. His leg had been wounded before capture. It never fully healed. Now it bled through the bandages. Before anyone could move, a girl, no older than 10, rushed from the farmer's porch, a yellow slicker flapping around her like a flag. She knelt beside the soldier. Takeo stood frozen at the doorway. The girl reached into her pocket and pulled out a strip of cloth. A bandage. No hesitation. No fear. Hiroshi tried to crawl away, ashamed, but the girl just smiled and said, "It's okay. Mama says war's over now." Takeo watched her wrap the leg. Her hands were small, careful, not trained, but kind. The wind howled. The lightning flashed again. And Hiroshi, the man who once slit a farmer's throat in Baton, began to sob. He cried not from pain, but from something deeper, something he couldn't name. Takeo turned away, his jaw tight. That night, the rain eased into silence. Water pooled in the campyard. Frogs sang. Takeo couldn't sleep. He lay on the wooden cot, eyes wide, listening to thunder roll away toward Mexico. He wasn't thinking about orders or the emperor. He was thinking about that child, her hands, her voice, her mercy. He had been told Americans were devils, but no devil offers kindness to a fallen enemy. When sleep finally came, it brought a dream. He was riding a horse, alone, through smoke and ash. The ground cracked beneath him, the air reeked of gasoline, and just ahead, a little girl held out her hand. He woke with sweat down his spine. He sat up and whispered, "What if they were right, and we were wrong?" 2 days later, a sheriff came to visit the farm. He wore mirrored sunglasses, a belt with too many keys, and a smile that didn't seem forced. The POWs lined up automatically, unsure if this was inspection or punishment. But the sheriff just leaned against the truck and started talking. Not to the guards, to them. "You boys know how elections work?" he asked, chewing on a toothpick. "In this country, we pick our leaders. If we don't like them, we vote them out." Takeo frowned. The idea sounded like chaos. "Even the president?" someone asked. "Especially the president," the sheriff said. The men whispered. A general in Japan was closer to a god than a man. To remove him by vote? Madness. The sheriff continued. "We like freedom. We like change. You get used to it." Then he opened the back of the truck and pulled out crates of newspapers. "Camp Command says you can read these now. War's over, after all." He dropped them at their feet. "Catch up." Later that night, the barracks rustled with voices. Takeo opened a copy of Stars and Stripes. Inside, photos of smiling American women in bandanas assembling fighter planes, children collecting scrap metal, lines of men welding tanks in Chicago. An article quoted President Truman, "We do not seek to dominate the world. We seek peace through strength." Takeo read it twice. Another POW leaned over and whispered, "These are lies. They must be." But the pictures were real. The steel was real. The planes were real. Takeo stared at a photo of a giant assembly line, one that built B-29 bombers faster than Japan could patch a runway. "They don't fear loss," he said quietly. "What do you mean?" the other asked. "They build with the assumption it might break, then build again. That's power." The next morning, they passed the sheriff fixing a flat tire. He waved. No soldiers, no guards, just him, a civilian, commanding respect by presence, not rank. Takeo watched him twist the lug nut loose. Efficient, patient, capable. No shouting, no ceremony, just action. And in that quiet moment, a thought struck like lightning. Maybe strength isn't obedience. Maybe it's something else. The day the horse arrived, the air smelled like rain and diesel. It was early, before roll call, when the farmer pulled up with a trailer hitched to his truck. Inside stood a chestnut gelding, tall and calm, its mane flicking flies from its eyes. The men gathered near the fence, watching in silence. The farmer whistled and looked toward Takeo. "You," he said, "ever ride one?" Takeo hesitated. He stepped forward slowly, like approaching a minefield. "No," he said in English. "Never." The farmer smiled, spit into the dirt, and said, "Ain't too late to learn." He opened the gate. The horse stepped down with a heavy grace, hooves pressing soft circles into the mud. Takeo's hands trembled. not from fear, but from something harder to name. The farmer handed him the reins. "Name him," he said. "He's yours today." Takeo blinked. "Name?" "Sure." Everyone deserves a name. Mounting the horse was clumsy. The saddle creaked, his balance swayed. But once he was up, the world changed. The fields no longer looked foreign. They looked open, endless, like something waiting to be understood. The other POWs clapped as he passed. One called out, "Look at you! Samurai on a cowboy horse!" Laughter rolled across the camp like warm wind. Takeo smiled, a real one, not rehearsed. He rode in slow circles, the sun rising behind him, wheat brushing the horse's legs. For the first time in years, he wasn't hungry, wasn't afraid, wasn't angry. He was just alive. That evening, back in the barracks, he stared at the horse from the window. It stood near the gate, tail swishing, utterly unconcerned with the men in boots and scars. He pulled out his journal. Today, I was given power, not forced, not ordered, but offered. They trust their enemies with reins, and somehow we don't run. He paused. We believed America was hollow, indulgent, soft, but this land, this people, they are full of something we never studied, grace. Weeks later, a transport officer arrived at the camp with a clipboard and orders. The war was over. Repatriation was beginning. Takeo's name was on the list. He folded his journal, packed his things. But before he left, he found the farmer by the barn. "Thank you," Takeo said, bowing low. The farmer tipped his hat. "You did good out here." Takeo glanced at the horse. "His name is Hikari." The farmer squinted. "That means something?" "It means light." On the train back to the coast, the POWs sat in silence. No one mocked America anymore. One soldier whispered, "We trained to die for the emperor, but they trained to live for each other." Another replied, "We were soldiers. They were builders." No one argued. That night, as the train rocked them to sleep, Takeo wrote one final line in his journal. "I am no longer ashamed to have survived." 3 days before departure, Takeo was reassigned to a new field crew, one that worked alongside American teenagers. They loaded grain into trucks bound for Amarillo. The work was fast, heavy, rhythmic. No officers barked orders, no whips cracked. Still, the bags moved, the trucks filled. Takeo wiped sweat from his forehead and watched a 16-year-old boy back a 2-ton Ford onto the ramp like it was a toy. "Learned that on the ranch," the boy said, grinning. "Dad made me reverse before I could drive forward." Takeo raised an eyebrow. The boy laughed. "Can't fix what you can't control." Behind him, another teen checked the tires, fuel line, and axle bolts, all by memory. Takeo realized something. These were not warriors. They were engineers in denim, mechanics in baseball caps, and the system that taught them, farms, schools, factories, was invisible but unstoppable. During a lunch break, one of the drivers pointed at a line of boxcars on the distant rail. "That grain'll be in Chicago by Wednesday, then shipped to New York, then wherever they need it." Takeo blinked. "So fast?" The boy chuckled. "Hell, that's slow. Army gets it quicker. They got priority lines, see?" Takeo turned to another worker, a man in his 50s, hands black with grease. "Why no delay?" he asked. The man shrugged. "Standardized engines, standard gauges. Everything fits. No guesswork." He spit tobacco into the dust. "That's the trick. Not just making stuff, making it match." Takeo stood silent. He thought of the Japanese trucks in Luzon. Engines scavenged from wrecks, tires from bicycles, fuel hand-pumped from rice barrels. They'd lost soldiers over broken axles, lost battles to missing spark plugs. And here, in the Texas sun, teenagers kept a fleet running with nothing but sweat, wrenches, and Coca-Cola. That evening, back in camp, Takeo told another POW. They don't pray for supply. They expect it. The man frowned. You still admire them? Takeo didn't answer. But deep down, he no longer felt insulted by America's ease. He felt overwhelmed by its logic. The final work detail came on a Sunday morning. The guards were off duty. The farmer was away. But the cotton still needed sorting, so the POWs were left under the watch of a teenage girl and her mother. No rifles, no shouting, just two women, a clipboard, and a schedule. Takeo was stunned. In Japan, no civilian, let alone a woman, would oversee enemy soldiers. But here, no one flinched. The girl walked the rows like a foreman, counting bales, checking for mold. She offered Takeo a water jug and said, "Sun's mean today. Don't be stubborn." He bowed. She grinned. "None of that," she said. "Just do your part. Just do your part." Those words echoed in his mind. Later, in the barn, he noticed something. Each box, crate, and barrel was labeled not just with contents, but with destination. Fort Bliss, winter gear. Pacific Depot, replacements. Camp Hale, rations, Type C. Each part had a place. Each item had a purpose. Even here, even now, nothing was wasted. He found a stack of documents near the back, shipping manifests, assembly instructions, maintenance checklists. One read, "All truck models will conform to Standard Model 6 BA. Interchangeable parts approved. No exceptions." Takeo whispered aloud, "No exceptions." Another sheet listed turnaround times. Factory to depot, 36 hours. Depot to front, 18 hours. Downtime tolerance, 2.5%. In Japan, a missing gasket could halt a division. In America, a missing truck was replaced before it stopped rolling. That night, he spoke to an older German POW, a mechanic, former Wehrmacht. "They call it modular production," the German said, drawing with a stick in the dirt. "Each plant builds one piece, like Lego." He chuckled. "In Berlin, we had 50 types of engines. Here, one key fits all." Takeo looked at the ground. "And prisoners, they help win," he said. The German nodded. "Even our labor becomes their strength." As they walked back to the barracks, the wind kicked up cotton dust. Takeo stared at his hands, brown from sun, cracked from rope, and whispered, "I fought to defend the Emperor's perfection, but these people thrive on imperfection, patched together, and somehow that makes them unstoppable." On the last full day in Texas, Takeo sat under the awning of the mess hall, watching the sunset bleed across the sky. He held a newspaper, dated July 1945, creased from weeks of rereading. On the front, a photo of the Ford River Rouge plant. Inside, rows of B-24 bombers on final assembly lines, men with goggles, women with wrenches, machines that never stopped moving. The caption read, "One bomber every 63 minutes." He turned the page. United States produces 96,000 aircraft in 4 years. Another article quoted Eisenhower, "We move 2 million gallons of fuel a day, enough to light up Tokyo." Takeo folded the paper. He no longer doubted the numbers. He'd seen the trucks, the trains, the rhythm of American effort. That afternoon, a camp instructor gave a final lecture. It wasn't required, but the POWs came anyway. On the chalkboard, a map of the Red Ball Express. Colored arrows traced routes from Normandy to Belgium, then across France. Trucks, pipelines, floating ports, built in weeks. Fuel lines laid faster than entire cities had recovered in Japan. The instructor tapped the map. Speed wins wars. We broke Hitler's back with tires and gas. Someone asked how often the trucks broke down. The man shrugged. Didn't matter. We had spare parts for our spare parts. The room fell silent. Takeo looked down at his boots, still American-issued. That night, a fellow POW spoke without whispering. I thought we were noble, he said. Pure, ready to die. He looked around. But they were ready to build. Another nodded. We trained to endure suffering. They trained to eliminate it. Takeo didn't speak. He opened his journal one last time. We believed our faith would outlast their greed. We believed our sacrifice would outshine their comfort. He paused. But they outproduced our beliefs, outdelivered our sacrifices. Not because they are ruthless, but because they are prepared. The next morning, the trucks came. Each man was handed a package: food, clothes, letters from the Red Cross. A guard offered Takeo a handshake. Good luck, soldier. He hesitated, then took it. The grip was firm, human, without bitterness. As the convoy pulled away from Hereford, the fields rolled past like a silent film. Tractors, silos, children waving, and beyond it all, the faint shape of a horse galloping under the morning light. Takeo thought of the numbers, the engines, the girl with the bandage, and then a single sentence surfaced in his mind, one he'd read in a classified U.S. logistics memo days earlier. We spend fuel to save lives, not the other way around. He closed his eyes. They didn't just win the war. They built a world too big for us to break. 20 years later, in a quiet pasture outside Nagano, a man saddled a horse. His grandson watched from the fence, eyes wide with wonder. The horse was old now. So was the man. Takeo Matsuda tightened the strap with practiced fingers, then turned. Want to ride? He asked. The boy nodded, bouncing in his sandals. Will it go fast? Takeo smiled, a slow, patient smile. Not today. First you learn how to hold on. He lifted the boy onto the saddle. The animal shifted gently. The boy gripped the reins with both hands. Takeo stepped back and let the sun bathe the moment in gold. From the barn, his daughter called, Papa, dinner soon. He waved but didn't move. Instead, he watched his grandson ride in slow circles, wobbly, determined, full of life. And for a moment, he wasn't in Japan. He was back in Texas. The dust, the wind, the sound of hooves over soft earth, a girl offering a bandage, a farmer handing him the reins, a nation that fought with factories and forgave with open hands. When the boy returned, Takeo helped him down. Why did you teach me? The child asked. Takeo looked out at the setting sun, not just west, but far west. To remind you, he said, that not all power comes from force. He paused. Some power is knowing when to let go. That night, in a wooden drawer, Takeo unfolded a yellowed page from his journal. The ink had faded, but the words remained. We trained to die for the emperor. But in Texas, we learned how to live.